IVM.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, your peak performance coach, life coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, and NLP practitioner. I'm also the founder of Abso Expertise Unique, and my organization constantly aims at building leaders across continents. After having worked with so many dynamic business honchos, entrepreneurs, startups, CEOs, management gurus, parents, and student communities worldwide, I am convinced that every individual has unleashed potential, and all we really need to do is realize it. Watch the magic unfold, enhance quality of life, relationships, and professions. On my show, be ready for some riveting conversations with inspirational people, snippets, stories, and much more. So here I am on this exceptional journey to find empowerment and inspiration anywhere I can. Come join me on this breathtaking path of self-realization, potential maximization, positivity, and most of all, embrace your inner power. You are on your way to empowering yourselves. Welcome to the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. On today's episode, I'm in conversation with a driven, passionate, and inspiring duo, resolute to create brand stories for organizations across various sectors. And are they doing a good job with that? Well, their proficiency and strategies are really taking their own firm a notch up. So please welcome the founders of The Honest Illustrations, Divika Mehta and Niklesh Karnani. Hello, Divika, and hello, Niklesh.
Hi, Zarina.
Hi, Zarina. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm really glad to have both of you. You guys are doing a fantastic job, and The Honest Illustrations always has something so fascinating on its page to watch. So I do follow what you are doing and keep a check on what's going on. And you are such creative people. So I want to know, how have the past few months been treating you?
Thank you so much for complimenting our page and liking what we do. But the last 3 months, they've been pretty taxing, but they've even opened our eyes up to different things also.
Like what?
It's been a roller coaster. It started off with March being pretty decent. It went to April, which was really bland. And then, things just picked up from May and June as a lot of brands are planning to go digital, which actually is a part of what we do.
Right. So you guys have been enjoying this time at home, and how has work from home been for you and The Honest Illustrations? Because I'm pretty sure that you're handling a lot of employees, a lot of clients, and sometimes it can be daunting, right?
Yeah, for sure. So in the beginning, when we started work from home, both of us were pretty skeptical because we've never done something like this before. We were always working from office and everything was pretty hands-on. Like feedback would be in real time. We would be giving it to our designers immediately when we saw something. But now when things shift to work from home, it's a completely different dynamic. You don't know always what's happening in front of you. So you get a little skeptical about how you're going to handle brands and if it's actually going to work out. Are you going to be able to manage the team in a proper way? But luckily, it's worked out pretty well and in fact, better than expected.
That is the first. Niklesh, what do you have to say about that? Because I meet a lot of people and a lot of clients, and in general, the temperature around is that people aren't able to manage the whole work from home. Of course, they've gotten used to it by now, but you sound very positive about it, Divika. So let's see what Niklesh has.
On the contrary, I think work from home is, to be candid, a scam because we actually have to communicate much more with the client. As you know, say a client has much more time to call you and give you feedback about every single detail that either is going up on their page or you're doing for their brand. So in terms of management of your employees and your team, I think that is if you have a great understanding with your team, then it's going to be smooth. It all depends on the kind of communication barriers you face. Yeah, feedback and approvals in real time are 100% way better. But over the phone, I mean, you have to get used to it, and I guess that's what people are getting used to.
Right. But you guys have been doing well over these few months from what I'm gauging in your conversation. But there's something that I'm very intrigued about, and I'm sure that our listeners would like to know. How did you embark on this journey, and what made you call your brand The Honest Illustrations?
my journey is pretty interesting as I started off in the events field, and I really loved organizing social gatherings, events, and tournaments like sports tournaments. And while pursuing design as a hobby, graphic design was always at the peak of my interest. And while doing that, Divika and I used to really discuss it, and we were discussing ideas and figuring out how to start something in this space. While we also realized that we had one goal to, make design an essential and grow businesses through the power of design. Using the power of design. That was ideal for us, and that's when the honest illustrations came up. It was just a reflection of us as people, and our personalities. Hence, we used it for our brand.
That's pretty nice. That's quite amazing, I'd say. The word honest itself is so nice and honest, Somebody would just want to trust you on your brand instantly. So I just love the name. Devika, you have something to say about that? Your journey?
So my journey, it is pretty unexpected because I was very inclined towards art as a kid, but I never thought that I'd ever land up in the branding space. I always thought that obviously I'll become an artist. That was the only thought I always had. But then when I did my major in advertising, that's when I kind of realized that this is a really good option and I was enjoying it quite a lot. I took a couple of internships and I went for them and I realized that this was actually what I wanted to do. And when I was in these internships also, I used to speak a lot about it to Niklesh. And both of us, like he said, would keep having conversations about this, about like how do we go ahead with design. And through our conversations, one fine day we were just like, let's launch Beyond Illustrations. So that was about it.
That's the story of your embarkment, actually. Okay, you guys have been pretty strong with branding. I think you have really taken your organization a notch up when it comes to kind of brand building for clients. So tell us more about brand building in general and brand communication.
So if I talk about the current scenario, many people think that branding is not an essential. And of course, in a time like this, sometimes there are budget issues and many other issues that come into play. But many people completely neglect this aspect when they're running brands. And I feel that you shouldn't entirely do this because this is a time when people are kind of free and they want to know more about different things, and you should at least have your presence intact at this point of time, so that when however long this goes on for and when this ends, at least they have something to fall back on and they always have something to remember. If you completely go MIA during this time, people might forget you. And this is, in fact, the best time to build brands and to build your existing brand to see what other avenues you can take it into and what are the possibilities there can be for it, because you're also relatively more free and you also have that kind of time to put into it. So, this is a great time to take it forward.
So, Divika, that was really well said and very well put out. So, Niklesh, what's your thought on brand building and branding, especially since Divika mentioned that times have changed and naturally you look at this as an essential from your perspective. So, what's your take on it?
I think Divika covered most of it, and to add to that, making branding an essential right now and in general is extremely important, as it's all about being relevant to your time, especially for upcoming brands and even brands that have been there since the past. It's all about connecting with your audience. It's about being respectful about what's going on. Let's talk about today master an essential, and how a client of ours who was into shirts has now restructured their model and gone into production of masks which are comfortable, soft, and secure for all her customers. The reason she did this was to be relevant to this time and to be able to connect with the customer, because everybody, the world is going through this, and it's super important for us to connect with them, not only by selling, but by being empathetic towards what's happening to everybody.
True.
Going forward with this, brands like need to be understood. People usually go wrong with the concept of branding as they only consider the tangible aspect of this. That is the, your logo, your graphics, your colors, sounds, music, jingles, the voice. Whereas everything that they can see and hear, right? Mainly the optics of it. And whereas brands are actually like branding is the perception of a brand in a customer's head. And that's what people need to get. And, the intangible bit, the promise, the personality, the positioning, and the emotion is what counts right now.
That's fantastic. I don't think I've understood that perspective of branding so much. But that's very true because there is an intangible aspect, and maybe that needs to be tapped into right now. So, you are saying that branding is also about relevance in its times, right? So, currently, if you're branding for something, like the example you gave of your client, so there has to be relevance in the current scenario or in any scenario in the future where they can actually use it to their benefit and to show empathy and compassion at the same time. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Let's imagine that, a company comes to you, and I do know a lot of people who want to get into branding side of things, but apart from branding, what else do you offer and how do you go about the whole procedure at the Honest Illustrations?
The Honest Illustrations is mainly a design studio where we focus on three main verticals: that's branding, social media marketing, and content creation. Under branding, we handle brand strategy, brand communication, brand identity system designs, UI UX, and under social media we handle social media marketing for platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And going forward for content creation, we mainly create content in terms of photos, videos, and animation. So we handle productions for these, for upcoming brands, for brands that already exist, corporates. Hence, our target is anyone and everyone who wants to build a brand and continue building their brand in the long run.
Okay. Do you think, Divika, communication is an important aspect of branding?
Yeah, definitely. Communication is a very, very important aspect because not only do we need to create communication for how brands communicate, but being in the business with having creative skills of execution, of ideation, of creation, you also need to have the skill to be able to put out that idea to your client. Sometimes we may create the most amazing design, or you may create the amazing visuals and or website or anything, but if you can't put it out in the right way to your client, it kind of falls flat. And sometimes in our head, we feel like it's the best idea and we've come out with, and we kind of have a eureka moment. But presentation skills really, really matter when you're in this business. And apart from presentation skills, also, it's very important to form relationships, like from our side and also for brands with their customers. For us, it is basically about building rapport with our clients so that we have long-term relations with them. And because it's a very personal relationship, because it's kind of putting your baby in someone else's hands. When you've nurtured it and you've created it, you always want to make sure that it's going in the right hands. So it's kind of our job to make sure that we will take care of it and we are not going to treat it like an outsider.
That's a nice analogy, actually, putting your baby in somebody else's hand, because maybe that's what entrepreneurs feel about their brands, right? So, yes, of course, you have to look after them equally well and create that kind of comfort for them. So, definitely, communication, like you mentioned, is important. How well people listen, because I think in branding or in the kind of verticals that you all have at the Honest Illustrations, sometimes there can be a lot of miscommunication, right? So, how do you all deal with that?
In terms of miscommunication with the team or with the client?
Both, if you like.
In terms of miscommunication with the client, I guess it's as our name suggests. We are honest. If there's a mistake that's made, I think we come forward and come up with solutions of how to solve something. And in terms of employees and the team, we suggest the same to them. As if there is miscommunication, they should. We are very curious. We like to ask a lot of questions. We make sure we have all our answers before diving into any project. We've set guidelines in terms of how many questions should be asked, and we already inform the client that we're going to be picky. We're going to ask you different questions. We're going to pick your brain and get an understanding of what you have in mind for your brand. As it's not easy to read someone when you meet them the first time, right? Like it's like a date. Like you have a first date with the client, then you have a second date, then a third date, then a fourth date, and then you understand the person better, right? So once you, it's I think more than being problem solvers, it's also about building relations and
Mhm.
understanding, and as Divika said, putting yourself in their shoes and passing on the baby to the other person. So that is very important.
So you guys have started young, and I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of challenges and fears that come along with entering the entrepreneurship space at a younger age, because most people have been trained in MBAs and family business schools and things like that, and then they join a business or they start a business. But if you have
Yeah.
co-founded an organization at a much younger time or a much younger age in life, and you're also dealing with people possibly older to you, sometimes that can be intimidating. Sometimes there might be fears or challenges that come with it. So how do both of you deal with that?
In the beginning, actually, it really, the age kind of did matter because people wouldn't really take us seriously. Everyone would just think
Mhm.
that these are just two kids who have just started something and it's just like a hobby for them. But then
Yeah.
eventually, even as we started working more and more, the way we put ourselves out there also changed, and the way we spoke also changed. So I think that's kind of a gradual process about age being a barrier for us in the
Mhm.
beginning. But answering the question about managing older employees, that also happened quite gradually because, again, in the beginning, it was very different for us because when we hired the first person who was older than us, so it was a bit difficult, not difficult as such, but it was different giving them direction about how we want things to be.
New experience.
Yeah, it was a new experience. And then, like, as we continued doing it on a daily basis, even we kind of got the confidence that at the end, we know what we want to do for our company and we know what we want to do to take it forward. So, age then, it honestly becomes a number.
Wonderful.
I think to add to that, it is all about becoming familiar with, if even if we hire someone that is older than us,
Mhm.
it's all about becoming familiar with the person. And again, as I said, building relations. As you know, it's all about people management. If you know how to manage people, I guess you're not going to have a problem whether you're old or young. You're going to get through with it irrespective.
Absolutely true. And what kind of challenges do you face, and what kind of fears have you overcome along the way? Challenges
Uh,
that, probably for the co-founders in general, or even personally, if any.
I think in terms of barriers, personally for me, I was afraid of public speaking, and I at that point of time I didn't imagine webinars and podcasts to be a part of our entrepreneurial role. It was more about the business, going out there, getting clients, the hustle and bustle of it. I think it's really helping me overcome this fear of mine, which I had during my college days. When we started off at an early age, we weren't taken too seriously because of two things. One, because of age, and two, because people didn't understand what graphic design is.
Right.
And I feel India now has really progressed and is understanding the value of graphic design, of branding, of they're understanding the value of creators in general.
Mhm.
And it's really picking up and allowing a lot of creators to put their work out there and be appreciated, because everybody is looking for appreciation, and it's helping them to grow more and more, and we're seeing emerging talent every day.
Absolutely. So, public speaking, Niklesh, how have you managed to overcome this fear of yours? Because let me tell you, public speaking is the second most feared thing in this entire world. Actually, it's sometimes the first. So people rather be dead than give a eulogy, basically. It's as simple as that. So, yeah. How do you overcome this fear of yours, and how did you manage? Because it's a common one. It would be nice if people get a little tip or two from you.
I think you just have to experience a number of firsts
Hmm.
and meet Zarina Poonawalla.
Oh, keeping that a secret, but anyway, now that it's out. Just like Niklesh has his public speaking, Divika, any challenges that you probably face?
Yeah, I do face certain challenges, especially because we're a male and female co-founded studio. So sometimes it gets a little difficult for me to be taken seriously that when our clients are male dominated.
Right.
So sometimes, even though I'm making sense and I know what I've researched and what I've said is the truth and it does make sense, sometimes it's not taken seriously because of the stigmas we have.
Right. Because just because of gender disparity rather.
Yeah, yeah. So, and before also we would also work with vendors like
Mm-hmm.
printers, and we actually do work with them now also, but now I do have relations with them. But before, also, when a woman tries to communicate with them and explain things to them,
Mm-hmm.
it's not taken as seriously because they just feel that, okay, she's just talking bullshit.
I think to add to that, Divika really hustles the printers now.
She does. I think she's just got
Yeah.
the knack of it now.
Yeah, and like they both will have conversation in Gujarati, and I will just be like, "What is going on?" And it's great to see how they have this relation between the two of them.
Yeah, but honestly, if there are any other female entrepreneurs listening to this, I'd just like to tell you that hold on to it because in the beginning, when this happened, I kind of conditioned myself to thinking that, okay, no, I do need a man wherever I go because you're not going to take me seriously if
Mhm,
there's not a man with me saying what I need to say.
mhm.
But if you're facing something like this, just hold it out and eventually you will be taken seriously. You will make that way for you. But don't condition yourself into thinking that you can't do it.
That is so motivating. And also, you will not need a man eventually. That's what you mean.
Yeah, yeah,
You go,
yeah,
girl.
exactly. But what about you, Zarina?
What about me?
Do you face something like this while speaking to your clients?
To be honest, I may have faced it many, many years ago, probably when I started out and I was younger, because naturally I was new to the male dominated world. But eventually, and very, very honestly, I've worked with some wonderful gentlemen in my life. And all of them have been so respectful of me, and they've always wanted to take my counsel. So I can't say the challenge doesn't exist, but I did face it many, many years ago. Now I don't so much, because now I think over a period of time I built my own boundaries, my own parameters, and people know that either you step in or you step out, right? So it is
Yeah,
all equal. And I personally feel it's more about creating equal opportunities between genders than about equality, because we are made differently genetically also, and even otherwise we're just made differently. So it's unfair to imagine everything going to be equal. But it's very important that you understand, when you're dealing in a so-called world which is probably male dominated, you don't have to think about the men around you. You have to think about the job that you come with, the focus that you have, and the consistency, just like you are doing right now, Divika. So I'm guessing maybe 10 years later, if this conversation happens with you, you'll also think that, yeah, things are getting better. It's not because they got better, it's just because you made it better for yourself over a period of time. You knew how to put your message across. One of the things that I have faced and that I can share is, I realized in the beginning that when you're working with a lot of people, and especially when your business is communication, right, you will come across people who think differently about the whole process of communication, and it might get personal. So one of the things I started doing very, very early in my career is I chose my clients more than my clients chose me, and that worked for me. I guess that's what it is.
I think what you said is beautiful, and I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating equal opportunities, and it's very important to do that. I also about choosing your clients. This is something that initially we wouldn't do,
Mm-hmm.
and we realized the importance of doing this. And now when we go and resonate with a client at a meeting, we try and get where they're coming from, where they want to go. We try and understand their behavior. We try to understand what the goal is and what kind of people they are. It's very important to us that the people we are working with, uh, we're on the same magnitude as them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on the same magnitude as us. I feel it's a give and take. Um, so it's
Absolutely.
really important to choose who you're working with.
It is, right? Because, you can avoid a lot of unnecessary issues, because I think one of the important things as entrepreneurs is not to say yes to everything, but to know what to say no to. And when you know how to say a proper no in the right place, you can really focus on your priorities. It just changes the game completely, doesn't it?
I completely agree with what you're saying, and I really think that as students, we were never taught to say no, and about in these real experiences that we have, and when you experience it, you just think you have to grab the first opportunity, the second opportunity, the third, and so on. But
Mhm.
that's not the way we need to go, right? We need to look at opportunity, the ones that work for us, and that the ones that don't work for us. You don't have to say yes to everything. And learning how to say no is something that comes with time. Is something that I think comes with personal experience.
Yeah, that's right. I had one more question related to the kind of work you do as co founders. What are the pros and cons of having to share so many agreeable and disagreeable moments with somebody where business is concerned? And having conflicting thoughts sometimes, and sometimes being able to agree or not agree, whether it's with the team, whether it's about your team, about your clients, about vendors, anything or everything around you. So, what are the pros and cons of co founding an organization?
Our wise mentor told us just learn how to agree to disagree, and that really worked for us.
Okay, wonderful. I really have to meet this mentor of yours one day. Divika, what about you?
About both of us working together in the beginning, we were a bit raw
Mhm.
and we would kind of get into arguments, but we wouldn't know how to settle them. We wouldn't know at the end of the argument, we would still not know what direction it to take.
Mhm.
But over the years, like Niklesh said about our wise mentor, we have learned about to agree to disagree. So now, literally, when we do have arguments, there is a conclusion to it because we know if there is no conclusion to there's no one else at stake but the company.
Mhm.
So at some point we realize that you need to try to understand the other person's point of view and look at things objectively, not only look at them emotionally.
That's nice, and I'm really glad that you guys take your mentor seriously. That's a good thing. Also, what do you think is going to be the future of branding, communication, even social media in general? Because everything's about social media, everything's about the internet now, since times have changed, right? So, what do you think is the future of branding in general and even otherwise with all the other verticals that you have in India and globally?
In India, I think it's building up. People are starting to value it way more now than ever. And as this time, COVID-19 has pushed us to go digital, and we need to put ourselves on social media platforms because of this. As the whole tangible aspect of it is dangerous right now. Hence, people want to have everything contactless. They want to see everything over platforms like a website, like your social media pages. And branding is really picking up in India. I really believe that in the next 5 years, we will be growing and we will have many, many more brands that follow the concept of branding. They actually make it an essential for themselves personally
Yeah.
and for their products.
All right. Devika, what's your take on the Indian markets for branding and the future of the business that you're in?
For especially in Indian markets, like Niklesh said again, that there has been more openness and more susceptibility to branding and design.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually having this conversation with my sister only recently.
Mm-hmm.
And what she also told me was that design earlier was considered a luxury. Like only the elite would get things designed. Not everyone would look at design as an essential, really. But today, design is it's like the minimum expected from the brand.
Right.
And if you don't have that in place, people don't see you as credible enough. Because today, also, like for the simplest example, if someone goes to your Instagram and it's really designed poorly and the content that you put out is very poor, no matter how good your product is, it's not going to get that traction. So it's extremely important to have your messaging in place and the way you put it out in place for people to trust you.
Sounds pretty interesting. And how about the global market? What's your take, both of you, on the global markets?
Globally, I feel most of the places are quite ahead in this space as compared to India. We're moving at a really, really good speed, but the opportunities that are available globally, not all of them are available here.
I think globally, to add to what Divika said, we are getting there, but
Hmm.
it will take some time. And I guess we all have to just make sure that we put out how important design, communication, branding is for brands to actually take it up
Hmm.
and make it an essential rather than consider it like a luxury. Because it is super important for people to accept that this is a very important part of their business, and
Right.
growing their business through this space will allow them to reach the standard that they see and aspire to be in terms of the term international. A lot of people come to us and tell us we want to be international. And then our first question to them goes like, but do you have the budget for it? Because today people want to get things done for cheap. You're not going to the restaurant to try the cheapest item on the menu, right? You're going to try the best item on the menu, the best, whether it's the best selling or it doesn't matter whether it's moderately priced or highly priced.
Hmm.
My point being is that to get quality, you got to invest that amount of time, thought, money, so that the people who are doing it get rewarded for it too.
Hmm.
And globally, that is very well appreciated and rewarded right now. And I really believe the same trend has been followed since the last couple of years in India too.
Right. I read in a book that to make billions, you'll have to spend millions first. So I think
Yes.
that's what you're talking about. Yeah, Devika, you were saying you adding on to something?
I wanted to add to that, just saying that people create a very big divide between how things are done globally and how things are done in India. But when we're also talking about, we're not thinking that the stuff done in India is bad. It's really, really good. Like, it's amazing.
Hmm.
And it's kind of sad because there have been people who come to us who said that they want to create their new identity or something like that, but they have these specific words. Don't make it look like an Indian brand, or don't Indianize it. And when you hear it, you're so shocked, because why wouldn't you want to look like you're made in India? Because, I mean, what is there to be ashamed of? Because the stuff we do is great. It's amazing, but no one wants to acknowledge that.
You're so right. In fact, there was, I like to see those memes, which I used to badly pronounce earlier, call them memes, but nonetheless, I used to. And I saw one of them which said that if you want to get a compliment in an Indian state when you're traveling, the best compliment you hear is that it doesn't look like you're in India. When you
Exactly.
go to another part of India and you say, कि अरे बहुत अच्छी जगह है, you should visit that place because it doesn't feel like you're in India. That itself is something that we should actually reconsider. So you're absolutely right. Why not Indianize brands, and why not actually be proud of the fact that it's a make in India product or a made in India product, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Hmm. That's a good thing for you to promote, and I'm so glad that you all have this mindset also.
Zarina, I had a question for you actually. I wanted to ask you about what are your views on mental health and how it's picked up in a way where people are more open to coming out and speaking about their problems to help other people and grow. What are your views about this? And do you think social media is a good platform to allow people to do that?
That's an interesting one, Niklesh. So, mental health, I think, was very tabooed in conversation. If you went to a psychiatrist or a therapist, it first used to be a taboo. It was not looked upon very well, and, people considered you being crazy or some kind of insanity in you to have to go to a psychiatrist or take help like that. Now, I want to compare this with physical health for a moment, then I can explain what I'm trying to say to you specifically. You see, when people 20 years ago hit the gym, when gyms were new, when people hit the gyms, it was not looked upon positively. It was,
Hmm.
if you are fat, you're going to the gym. It was nothing to do
Okay.
with health, right? So if somebody put on a lot of weight and they went to the gym, and I know people who used to hit the gym at that point, but it wasn't a fashion statement. It wasn't a fad. It wasn't about health. It was about being fat. If you're
Yeah.
unhealthy, you go to the gym. And that was something which was also considered, oh, you're going to the gym. That means that something's wrong with you too. You understand? So that was from the physical perspective of things. Over a period of time, that changed drastically and considerably. And you actually can see that the pictures or the videos you see of people working out are all people who are already fit. So you wonder when they worked out and when they actually became that fit, but they're already so fit that it just feels weird that why are you working out so much? But then it's
Yeah.
become a routine, it's become a sort of statement, it's become a style, it's become a fad as well. So now I'll tell you, I find a delicate approach here where mental health is concerned, because initially it was a taboo, but now it's also become a little bit of fashion for the younger generation to go to a therapist. I'm seeing a therapist.
Really?
Yes, it's become a statement which is great, which is open, which is amazing. So at least in that way, you're open to conversations about mental health. Now, another thing is that forever human beings have about 12,000, 60,000 thoughts in their mind all the time. And amongst
Wow.
these thoughts, 85% of our thoughts are negative most of the time. And 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. So we kind of ruminate and overthink, right? So
Yeah.
it is important for people to take help, not because something's wrong with you, but because it helps to kind of unwire and untangle all the thoughts that you have. It's a good thing. And people are opening up to that now. However, I also feel the more we are opening up to the fact that mental health should be an amazing discussion, it should be widely spoken about. It's not definitely not a taboo topic anymore, and people are open to the idea. But it's also something where you must not speak unless you have knowledge, especially where words like depression are concerned, words like suicide are concerned. People take these them loosely in conversation, and you must not
Yeah,
take them loosely in conversation until you don't have the expertise to, or you're taking help.
definitely.
So,
Yeah.
Definitely.
yeah, that's what I feel. I'm happy with the way things are in the mental health space. I've been doing a lot of work. You guys know that. So, stress, anxiety, talking about open conversations about what depression is, all of this. But at the same time, when a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old is using a word like depression or stress so strongly about their lives, you have to question and wonder as to where have they learned it, and how good is social media for them if they're learning it incorrectly. So that's my take on it, really.
I think that's really insightful and absolutely on point.
Thank you. Thank you, Niklesh. All right. So I would like to probably come towards the end of our segment. So I wanted to know what is the kind of wisdom, or let's say personal wisdom, you'd like to share for people who are fresh talent or young entrepreneurs in your space.
Don't be afraid of learning and knowledge. It's very important to go forward and be open to learn new things as trends change, times change. You have to be relevant. You have to be real with yourself about where you are and where you're going. And to reach your goal, you need to equip all of the things that are required. And to do that, you need to be open to learning and gaining more and more knowledge. I feel personally for me, learning is very important. And if I stop learning, I go crazy. I feel I'm stagnant, but I'm really not, because
Mhm.
I've learned so much. So always remember that the best of your today is the worst of your tomorrow, and you have to keep growing.
I love that. I love that. Devika, what's your advice or your counsel for all the young entrepreneurs out there?
I actually tell this to myself a lot, so I hope this helps you in some way. Um, it's very easy to make an excuse and tell yourself that you can't do it. But know when you're actually making an excuse to do something and when you've actually given something your all, and you know that you've really put in all the effort to understand something, and then move on. Because it's very easy for us to stop and procrastinate and tell ourselves that, okay, no, leave it. I've already done my bit and this is not working out, and I don't think I want to pursue it any further.
Mhm.
But have that grit and just move forward, and don't be afraid to learn something new, because you never know what's going to pop up and how it's going to help you in your career or in your life or however.
Absolutely. All right, we've come to the end of this conversation, Divika and Niklesh, and I can't tell you how happy and overwhelmed, in fact, in some way or the other, I am to have you both on this conversation today. So I'm excited to ask you the last and signature question. What empowers you?
What empowers me is the fact that I get to do what I do and I continue to do it. Learning and doing your own thing, being your own boss is very empowering for me.
Mhm.
And, learning from everything that's out there, whether it's, this podcast, it's all the different studios, all the different creators, the people, that are out there. I really like that. I enjoy that. It keeps me going every day when I wake up in the morning. So I think that is how it is for me.
Wonderful. Divika, what empowers you?
Being able to take decisions for myself and being accountable towards them. So tomorrow, if anything goes wrong, I don't have to blame anyone saying that I did this because of you and things went wrong because of you.
Mm-hmm.
It happened because of my own choices, and I'm happy taking those choices because I'm I'm accountable to myself, not anyone else.
I love that. Excellent. What a beautiful answer. Both your answers were so beautiful.
What empowers you, Zarina?
A lot of things empower me, and probably I've answered this question also a couple of times. But what really empowers me is knowing that I'm not allowed my freedom. Not being allowed my freedom empowers me, because then that's not freedom. So similar to you, like you like to make your decisions, like you like to take all the credit or the blame for your own doings, I feel the same way. I think that's very empowering. And what's most liberating is the fact that being answerable or accountable is one aspect, but having to do things because others allow you to do them is something that
Yeah,
I really can't see myself doing, and that empowers me the most. Yeah.
that's so nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you. So I like that sentence. I'm going to kind of put it in a nutshell. You said if you have the grit, Devika, you said that when I was asking for pearls of wisdom. So I'm going to say,
Yeah.
if you have the grit, go for it. I don't even know make pretty sure it does. You guys have been wonderful, very insightful, extremely valuable in conversation, and you've educated us about branding and helped listeners understand not only branding, but maybe how essential it is even in these times. And I have to say that you all are doing a fantastic job, keeping such a positive spirit, such a good attitude and approach towards work, towards employees, towards the current scenario, and still kind of moving and treading along. That's fantastic. So all the best to the Honest Illustrations, and all the best to Divika, you, and Niklesh, you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Zarina.
so much, Zarina.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. So, a great week of shows behind us, and hope that you've been catching up on as much of it as you can. We had Abhishek Bachchan on Football Shitball. Yeah, let me say that again. Abhishek Bachchan was on Football Shitball. Did I mention Abhishek Bachchan was on Football Shitball? That was a fun episode. You should definitely check that out. Really, really deep conversation about cricket and things like that. We had Vikram Kochar on Cyrus Says, talking about Z platforms and stuff like what's going on over there. On the note, Maruk had spoken to Sanjay Jha, which was again a really, really interesting conversation. On Edges and Sledges, the guys are having an interesting conversation about, well, what are favorite formats of cricket and things like that. So it's just really been a really, really awesome week on the network, and please do check things out. And with that, hope to see you next week.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.